Hello, single person watching this. Welcome to a thing that's definitely not a complete ripoff of Crash Course History, and definitely isn't my 50th time recording this. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Darklings, the Halcyons, and the dynamic between them. And to begin, let's first take a look at the Darklings. The Darklings, or the signal card in their native tongue, which directly translates to Children of the Night, were a group of static living villagers that populated a realm now known as Anniahisalih. The civilization at the time could be compared to an early democratic situation, each village having an elected representative that would every so often join up with the other representatives to discuss the overall goings-on of their village, problems that had occurred, and possible solutions to the problems. Their houses, being stationary, were made up of interlocking wooden logs, almost like modern-day earthen cabins, seeing as wood was an abundant source where they resided. The insides of the houses were often coated with a mix of clay and mud in order to keep out as much light as possible, seeing as their bodies were, and still are, hypersensitive to it. A lot of their food was also grown indoors, things like lunar shrooms, sugo nom, or moonlight fungus, and fiddleheads, pseudolactus, or musical sprouts, which made up the bulk of their diet. On special occasions, like Thingmil Lave Rabbit, or the Festival of the Eternal Night, dishes of meat and daytime plants would be served when all of the villages gathered together in celebration. Around the same time as this, the people of the realm of Annihisalih entered into the monarchy phase of their main kingdom, Lumine. They had yet to discover the existence of other realms, but with the desire for exploration starting to take hold over the people's lives, the discovery was inevitable. Originally, Annihisalih was discovered when a troop of explorers searching for supplies to help fortify parts of the kingdom in case of attack from neighboring civilizations stumbled across the interdimensional gateway, and curiosity compelled them to enter through. Another expedition, with about twice the amount of people, was actually the ones who discovered the Darklings themselves, coming across one of their villages while attempting to harvest the almost stone-like trees that grew in that area. Fearful of this odd race, they observed from afar before coming to the conclusion that these creatures were simply twisted, inverted copies of their own race. This misinformed belief, plus the overall belief of superiority exhibited from the majority of the Halcyons people at that time, is what played a major part in the subjugation of the Darkling people and the future discourse between the two races. The first incident between the two took the form of a raid at the village the Halcyons had first discovered. That raid was a snowball rolling down the side of the mountain, soon picking up speed and growing bigger and bigger. The little raid became an all-out attack on the people of Annihisalih, which soon spiraled down to an all-out war on both sides, mostly taking place in Annihisalih itself. Once the war seemed to have cooled down, the Darkling civilization was left in utter ruin. Almost half of their population either taken hostage or killed in the brutal battles that had taken place. Those who were left either lived in fear of what could possibly become of them, or lived in anger, cursing the ground the Halcyons walked on. Those who had been captured were put to work back in Annihisalih, although lots of them were either badly damaged from the treatment that was given their way, or died due to sun exposure, or both. Unlike Halcyons, Darklings could lift, carry, and withstand much more strain, which made them the perfect workhorses. The Halcyons, of course, weren't without repercussions on their end too, although theirs were a lot less severe in comparison, seeing as they were supposedly the victors at that time. Of course, they'd lost quite a few people in the battle as well, and suffered some damages to their own land, but aside from that, the Halcyons were fairly well off after the first wave subsided. And that's how it was, for quite some time, until disaster struck on both sides, as it usually does. And to the Darklings, their disaster came in the form of a prophet of their lord, who to this day holds an iron fist around their way of life. They spoke of a new way of life, the intended way. They spoke of taking their people back, fulfilling their role to the great powers that be, and through that preaching, they rose to power in an almost dictatorial way. For the Halcyons, the catastrophe was less of a slow burn over time and more of an instantaneous downpour of tragedy. Around the same time as the prophet wormed their way into power, the royal family of Halcyona was struck down in a silent attack one night, leaving the youngest daughter of the king and queen the only one alive. While there is no solid evidence pointing to who the culprit was, the Halcyons immediately assumed it must have been the work of the Darklings who were kept as slaves for the royal family, although it was later found out that it was actually the work of the same person propelling the supposed prophet into rule back in Annihisalih. As a result, the Darklings within the confines of the kingdom were executed. Those who managed to flee were outlawed and wanted by the kingdom. They were forced to live their lives out in the forest, hiding from the Halcyons or masquerading as Halcyons themselves, most living a life of crime in order to just barely get by. Years after, the Darklings, led by the Prophet, staged a full-scale attack against the Halessian capital. And that brings us to the Darklings and Halessians in this day and age. To this day, the relationship between the two is still a pretty rocky situation, but for the most part there are no longer threats of war, mindless killings, or the beliefs that Darklings are just twisted images of the true Halessian form. Of course, some still hold this mindset, but the majority is trying its best to be accepting of their underrealm brethren. Anniahisalih itself is still held under a dictatorship by the Prophet and the one pulling their strings, and their economy is most definitely struggling from that fact. Their living situations are usually more on the crappy side, but for the most part their culture remains intact to this day. While their old celebrations and festivals aren't the same as they used to be, they've been adapted to modern age, although a few still celebrate them like their ancestors used to, or at least try to the best of their ability. Their language isn't as widely spoken anymore, but most people do know the basics of it and are able to communicate it with need be. And that, my single person watching this, concludes our quick rundown of the Darklings and the Halessians and where they are today. Tune in next time, which probably won't exist, for a rundown on demons and angels and why both of them are dicks. See ya.